So today we're going to transfer the beer in the keg on the right with the airlock on it that is acting as my primary fermenter into the keg on the left that has been cleaned and sanitized and filled with CO2, and that's going to act as the secondary fermenter. I've adapted this airlock to fit the keg by connecting a compression fitting with a piece of copper tubing to a threaded connector, and it screws right in there. There's a flare fitting in there, and the copper tubing goes partially inside of this airlock. I've cut off the bottom plastic piece, you can see right here, of the airlock so that it better fits the copper tube, and in the center column there's a piece of plastic tubing wedged in between the copper tube and the inner piece of the airlock. Okay, so we're ready to transfer the beer now, and I've got my small CO2 tank with the keg fitting, and I have this jumper cable here that I've made that is a pretty simple party style tap that's going to let me take a sample of the beer right now so I can get a good gravity reading. And we're going to collect a sample inside of this tube here. So I'm just going to pop off the airlock, and we're going to set that aside for now. And I'm going to connect with the gas, which I've already turned all the way down. And I'm going to slowly increase the gas pressure. And there's our sample for us to test. Now that we have our sample, we're ready to transfer the beer. I've simply replaced the picnic tap on one end of the tube with an identical liquid out connector for the keg. Now what I'm going to do is connect the liquid out to the other liquid out. And finally, I'm going to connect the CO2. So now the CO2 should push the beer from the primary into the secondary, and to do that I'm just going to let the gas vent by opening up that valve. And now we can see it's transferring away from the bottom of this keg through the tube, and it's going to fill from the bottom up. And the only thing in this keg right now is CO2, so it's just going to push the CO2 out of the vent hole at the top as the beer comes in to replace it, so the beer will never touch the air or get oxygen exposure during this transfer. So that wraps it up for our keg to keg transfer here, and as soon as this is complete I'm going to put the airlock back on, this time the secondary keg, and I'm going to let that sit for another week or two and until there's no more fermentation, and then from there it's going to get transferred a second time from this keg to another keg where it's going to condition, and then it's eventually going to be served from that third keg.